Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Man Cave Chronicles. Your host, James Littlejohn. That's me. How the devil are you? Hopefully, you are okay. It has been a while. It's been a minute, hasn't it? As they say, it has been a minute. I've got the muffins on the ears. I'm ready to broadcast. It has been such a long time. I have been meaning to catch up with you for a while. Like anything else, life gets in the way, and sometimes you gotta prioritize. Something I always say, and it's a message I always deliver, is prioritize. Prioritize things in life. And by prioritization, I mean, if you're for me, this you'll get a big message today. But for me, it was almost burnout. I almost felt burnout. So for me, I had to prioritize. The prioritization was for me was work, because that pays the bills. So I needed to retain as much emotional integrity as I can to be able to deliver at work, because I have to, because that pays the bills, that keeps a roof over my head, that keeps food on the table, keeps everyone happy. So so when you're like that, and obviously prioritize my family, because family is first. So I was, on the cusp of burnout. It has been the first time I've felt burnout like this in best part of a week. No, it's been, but first time I felt burnout to the extent that I felt this time round for a very long time. By that I mean, I started my mental health journey almost 5 years ago. That was when I started the first podcast and delivered 2 years of podcast. And then basically, I've got some weird music on in the background, haven't I? It's podcast background music, but I have no idea what it's throwing me off. I'm not gonna lie, it's throwing me off. So that started the journey. So I'm acutely, because I've been working on myself for the best part of 5 years now. I'm acutely aware of my emotions. I'm very, very self-aware of who I am, what triggers me, what makes me happy. I'm very aware of that. But the reason I've done that is because for the last 5 years I've been talking about mental health. I've been advocating mental health, but more importantly, I've taken control of my mental health. That is the biggest. I think that's one of the biggest factors I see for most people. And when I speak to people and I offer support and I get involved and you have conversations with friends, and something I've spoke about this before I think one of my podcasts recently, I spoke about a friend that I knew I couldn't help because he wasn't helping himself. And I was like, you've got to start with yourself, because nobody can help you until you physically make the effort to help yourself. Because if you don't, no matter what I say, you're either going to procrastinate on and not do, or you're going to do but not succeed, because you've not set your mindset up to succeed. You've not gone, right, okay, I know, for instance, I know, like, driving is a massive trigger for me. In all circumstances, driving is a trigger for me. Because of the 3 car crashes I've had, because of I've got a permanent PTSD. And I talk a lot about mental health statistics, and I talk a lot about things I deal with. But I was diagnosed with permanent PTSD about 7 years ago. No, it was about 10 years ago. Sorry. When I started taking the medication and everything else. God, I get so confused with timelines, because there's so many different timelines I talk about all the time. Time. So it's basically, that was me just that's fucking batshit crazy. I talk about, taking control of my life. So basically what I know what triggers me. I know driving triggers me. So I know that I've got to set myself up to potentially have road rage, because someone will piss me off on the road. Someone will be a fucking knobhead and I want to kick the shit out of them. So I have to manage that. So I go, right, so you need to basically make sure that those incidents that you get into potentially, to try and eradicate any emotion from it. Just say it's driving, it's happened, move on. To do that is a conscious thought for me. I have to actively, consciously think, ignore that, James, and move on. Otherwise, for me, as you know, ADHD, another thing I'm diagnosed with, that brings out a fight or flight syndrome. So for me, that's a trigger. So I go from 0 to hero. So there's not much emotion in the middle. I don't go, oh, that's really pissed me off, I'm going to call him a fucking wanker, or I'm going to stick the fingers up. I'm just going to genuinely get a little bit upset. I don't get that emotion. I go from somebody's like upset me to I want to drag you out the car and I want to smash your face in the car door. That's kind of where I go. So I'm acutely aware. Now, that might sound really aggressive to most people for non-neurodivergence. If you're neurodivergent, you'll probably understand that, that's where it goes to. So hence the reason why I have a blue badge. I have a blue badge because of the ADHD, because, there's been situations where I've put myself into situations with parking and I've kind of gone, I'm going to smash your head off the back of the fucking window if you piss me off. And I'll elaborate on that story at a later date. But just to give you an idea. So, it's that serious. My ADHD is that serious that I get a blue badge to stop me and mitigate me from being, a risk, because that's where I go to. I go zero to hero. It's really weird because I can't stop that. Whereas most people would say to yourself, well, just don't react like that, James. And I'm like, no, okay. And most people that would say that are non-neurodivergents. A neurodivergent person might turn around and say, okay, I accept. Because I'm the same. I get emotional. So there's some people that will be in that neurodivergent spectrum that will be, their emotion will be cry. And it'll be like nothing to fucking really upset. It's an intense emotion that you feel with attention deficit, ADHD, attention deficit. I can't remember what the H stands for. It's completely gone. But disorder. I don't call it disorder anyway. It's wrong. It's a disorder. It's not even a condition. It's an old mental state that we haven't evolved out of, because of times where we were hunter gatherers. People with a neurodivergent brain were hunter gatherers. They have to think strategically. They have to think independently. They have to have limited emotion, and it's very much a fight or flight situation. If you actually understand, sorry, my phone, I haven't turned it on silent. Let me turn that on silent so we don't get bugged with that again. So people don't, a lot of people look at, because ADHD is spoken about in such a big forum now. Everybody thinks they've got it. Everybody is, I've got it because I'm disorganized. Okay, you just need to fucking help yourself, mate. You just need to learn to be organized and find a way to be organized. It's not fucking hard. For me, I get passionate about that, because you often look at people and like there's someone I know that I think's got ADHD but won't admit they've got ADHD, but you can tell because they go from nothing to, acutely emotionally driven crying. And you're like, what? How the fuck have you got here? How have you gone from here to here? Now, I can understand that, because I would look at them and go, why did you, there was an incident for me, why did you fucking drive? Why did someone cut you off, brake check you on the motorway? You proceeded to, fucking chase them for about 40 odd miles. I don't know what it was. It was around about 45 miles, if you want to be specific about it, through back roads. And every time and junction, he was a Volkswagen Golf. And at every point when we stopped at junction, I got out the car, went up and tried to fucking punch his window in to get him out of the car. Now, all he did was brake check me, admittedly at 70 odd mile an hour on the motorway. My PTSD, it makes my anxiety go through the roof. The ADHD kicks in, which is like super adrenaline. I have a really low dopamine receptors, so I don't produce dopamine. If you understand ADHD, you'd understand that. So when I get like severe adrenaline, the dopamine high I get from adrenaline is so in fucking intense that I chase it. It's like a drug. It's almost like heroin. If you were going to look at that. So some people will. So one of the easiest way to explain that one of the most difficult things to deal with ADHD is 100% the emotional triggers, or the emotion to deal with that, because it's a bit that is often not talked about. It's a bit that you just think that guy's been a prick. I've got friends that have known me like 30 odd years that still act surprised, and I don't mean in a negative way, but they're still surprised at the fucking level of like how zero to hero it goes. I've got more stories to give to you just over the previous fucking weeks. That's how bad it gets. So it takes constant management, because we're low on dopamine. So we're often walking around in a really sad state, because we don't get that natural dopamine that you would get on a natural basis. So, for instance, you might get a bit of satisfaction for helping somebody, or you may get a little bit of satisfaction for cooking a nice meal, and you get a reward, and not a reward, you get a thank you. A non-neurodivergent person would see that as would very much see that as like that's a big hit of dopamine for them. But because we get zero, we don't get it. It takes a lot. And even when we get in dopamine from something, it's never that intense. So you often find people with ADHD, they will have like such intense emotions to something that they will chase it. So for me, it's been adrenaline. I remember the first time I got into a fight as a young lad, and most men will get in fights. So don't look at that as a negative. I still, especially again, hunter gatherer. That's what I'm trained to. Mentally, state wise, my mental process is fucking no emotion to fucking shitloads of emotion, and I've got to protect. So when you find what that does, and you get that, like, it's almost like you go into a situation. Adrenaline is a fucking powerful tool anyway, but when you get adrenaline from the point where you've added a fight or flight element into it and you want to fight, that adrenaline is so intense. It's unfucking believable. It just overwashes and consumes me. I've been told that my pupils go so black that they just look black, and I've got greeny blue eyes. So when you see it, it's like super, super intense. That's because I'm getting such a high dopamine hit that for me, it's risky business. It's risky business. So you've got to be careful, because that's what I chase, because I know that will give me. So I know when I go into a fight, for me, for instance, even at 44, if I go into a fucking fight, I'm like, I'm confident I'm going to win. And also I'm excited about it because I get dopamine. Now that fucking sounds psychotic, doesn't it? But in actual fact, I'm a really nice person. I don't like fucking fighting. I hate fighting, actually, in actual fact. I don't believe in it. I hate bullying. I've been systematically bullied all my life, and I genuinely have. Even to the point where I'm bullied in my own environment. People don't realize they're bullying you, but they are. Current environment, people will hold me back because it's good for them. But that's a form of bullying, because you're holding up my career path. You're holding up me for your personal graphic, or your personal need. So that's a form of bullying for me. It's very narcissistical as well. So I've experienced a lot throughout all of my life. I've experienced some very negative behavior. I cast my mind back to years ago. I was horrendously bullied at 13. Teenage years, since when boys start getting testosterone. And that's when I really started to learn about the fight or flight, and I didn't like the flight bit. I preferred the fight, because I was like, oh, this gives me an intense. So all these signs and symptoms were always there, but they were never picked up on. Again, that's modern medicine, modern psychology, very much picking up things now a lot quicker, which is why a lot of like 30 to 40-year-olds are getting diagnosed quite heavily and quite quickly, because we missed the train on that one. So, but we still struggle. So it sounds fucking batshit crazy, doesn't it? It sounds like, oh god, this guy's a fucking animal. I'm actually not. But what I do is I chase the serotonin. I chase the adrenaline. The adrenaline gives me massive amounts of dopamine. Now, there's always repercussions to that. But I've done it with motorbikes. So I've been massively into motorbike racing, motor racing, fast adrenaline racing. To give you an example of how badly that can be. It was only last weekend, and I'm going to give you a little snippet, a little story into this, so you can see. So I'll give you a little bit of background, actually. So I'm very, as I started this podcast with, I'm very self-aware. I know what triggers me. I know what my behaviors are. I know how to walk away from situations now. I'm 44 years old. I'm married, 3 children. And two of them are full-grown adults now. So I've been through a lot, and for me, I'm very aware of what triggers me. I'm very aware of my mindset. I'm also very aware of what I need and what I don't need. I can't always articulate that, but that's just a little bit of background. Anyway, and I know this, and I've been in trouble a lot during my life, more than most. And it's never really fazed me, because again, being in trouble is a repercussion for the adrenaline that gave me the high internally in my mindset. So I can't really, I never look at it as a negative, because I got what I needed. Is it risky? Yes, it is. Absolutely risky as fuck. But yeah, so it was last weekend. I'm going to give you a little story. So my mum and dad, and also because I'm a fight or flight, in that fight or flight situation, because I class myself not as a fighter. I class myself on that side of the fence. I won't run from something. I like confrontation. And that's, again, look at these, all caveated with a professional. I'm not a knob. Okay, so caveat that with that. But I'm just giving you a little insight into it. So, but one of my biggest positives, I think, as having me as in your life as a friend, is I'm a protector. And by that means, I will, when I say I'll take a bullet for people in my life, I fucking would, because if you're in my inner circle, not only do I trust you, I've got people in my inner circle, but they're all on different trust bands. I don't really call it an inner circle; I call it a trust band circle for me. That's how I interpret it, because there's certain people that I will, I think there's probably two people in my life. I've said to you before, that I trust implicitly, like I will tell you everything. There's some things I'll tell you enough to maybe bring you into it a little bit, and then there's people that I'll bring you into my circle because we have a good time, but I won't tell you fuck all. So I've got different layers of trust, and I think that's certainly how I manage life. I manage everybody and how much I would trust you. I don't work on the basis of what you'll do for me or what I'll do for you. It's on trust. That's my biggest thing, because once you can have trust, but as soon as that trust is gone, it's fucking erratic. And I've had people that have been in the trust circle that I would tell things that are now out the trust circle. I've never seen them again because they broke that trust for me, and that's how cutthroat I am. And again, ADHD. More I'll talk about through this, but I don't miss people. I don't get that emotion. So just to play that in caveat, so you've had a little bit of background, quite a lot of background actually. I told you I'd gone on lots of tangents. So it was last weekend. I was out camping. I've got a tent box on the camper van, and I was like, I want to try it out. So we went camping, had a fucking lovely evening, just chilled. I got a takeaway, watched a movie, all in the van because I've got a cinema screen that comes down. I told you I like comfort, and I was sat there, and just like a minute ago, my phone went off, and it was a Ring doorbell notification, but it wasn't mine. It was my mum and dad's. So I was like, okay, so shit, I forgot I was on theirs because they've been away on holiday, and I look after their front door. So it came up, and anyway, I just my missus was having a shower whilst we were waiting to put the movie on, and I just sort of sat there, and I thought, I'll fucking watch this, I'll see what's happening, just because I was being nosy, because I saw a young lad on the camera, and I was like, what's he doing at the front door? I just got a bit nosy, so I went on, watched this, and anyway, it transpires that this dickhead had parked on the corner, because where my mum and dad lives, parked on the corner of a junction, but with a big fucking van. And it made it nigh on impossible to come around the corner or leave the cul-de-sac safely. So basically, my dad had been taking photos of the van because he was going to report it. Lo and behold, fucking, I would have done the same. Against the highway code, 10 meters from a junction. I fucking researched it. And then basically what he did was he proceeded to come around. He'd obviously noticed my dad taking photos, and he was like, he comes on, he's on the camera, and he's like, I noticed you taking photos. My dad was like, yeah, I'm taking photos because I'm going to report you. You parked dangerously. And this fucking kid who doesn't even live down the estate was sort of sat there chops off. Well, I think you need to go down to have a fucking word with some other people then. I can't park down the cul-de-sac. He's like, my dad's like, okay, you can't park down the cul-de-sac, but you can't park your van so fucking precariously on a fucking corner, causing an obstruction and a danger. You can't do that. It's not a free-for-all, mate. There's a highway code for a fucking reason. So I'm sat watching it, but my dad was polite as hell, he's like, look, mate, don't worry about it, fucking leave it. He said, if you stay where you need to stay, mate, but I'm going to report you. So kept it nice and fucking amicable, didn't want to chase it. And then this kid's like going, he's typical fucking young generation knob. I'm going to say he's a knob. Because he's never had a fucking slap. He's never been disciplined. And fucking, you could just tell by his attitude. I was getting angry watching this fucking reel going, I really want to punch his fucking face in. Because the way he was talking to my mum and dad was disrespectful. And I think I've always had respect for elders. It doesn't matter if an elder's fucked me off. I will always have respect for you. There's no, you're an elder. You've been through the meal. You may have had some hard times. I've certainly had some fucking hard times. So I know an elder to me would have had some hard times because we're talking 50s and 60s, and their elder, my great granddad and stuff, would have had hard times. We're talking fucking 30s and 40s, World War I and II, all that jazz. So I have respect. They've been through lots, fucking hard times. I've been through hard times. We're going through hard times now. As a fucking parent now, it is economically unviable to have children. Yet they're saying our population's decreasing. I'm going to go off on a tangent here, so stop. So he's chopping off, and I'm sat there, and I'm watching this fucking video. Anyway, it goes fucking quiet. And then I didn't hear the door close, but I piped up. I was like, I'm not happy. I'm going to fucking talk to this little prick. So I come off the camera, and I said, all right, buddy. I said, I'm the son. And he was like, yeah, all right, fella. And I went, and I said, I'm going to come down and chat to you tomorrow, mate. He said, you're being really fucking rude to my parents. I said, There's no need for it, mate. I'll come down and chat to me. He goes, yeah, fella, you come down and talk to me face to face. And it was like that. It was a fucking stupid little shitty, like, jippo-y language. And I said, I'm not your fucking fella, mate. I said, I'll come down and have a chat with you tomorrow. And he went, yeah, you fucking do that. And then I just went, this is the zero for hero. My dad fucking saved the message. I went, actually, I'm going to smash your fucking face in. Fuck it. I said, I'll be fucking down there now, mate. That's where I went to. I went from there. And he went, all right, then. Fucking do that then. And then he went, up your mother's fucking dead. And he said the C word. And anyway, so we're having this fucking battle. My dad and mum, I didn't realise, had shut the door. And they shut the door and gone in because they were like, we've had a conversation. Dad's going to report him hunky his door. So anyway, I messaged him saying, fucking sorry, Dad, I'll be down tomorrow. I'm going to have a chat with this little fucking prick. I'm going to give him a little cheeky slap. And I wasn't going to. But at the time, adrenaline's high. I got real fucking excited. I was an hour and a half away. I was ready to pack up, drive down and see him and go, all right, buddy, fuck off. That's where I'd get to. Then, so, even an hour and a half away, and just the way that they spoke, I was ready to fucking throw down. And I got the adrenaline from that, to the point where my missus come back from the shower and she went, what's up with you? You look like you seem on the edge. I'm like, oh, and I showed her and I watched the recording, and my missus went, fucking wow. You've literally listened to a message and now you're fighting. I was like, yep, that's fucking me. I'm ready to throw down. Nobody talks to my parents like that. And that's where I got to. And I was like, again, it probably was an element of how they were talking to my parents, especially my dad's 70 years old. And I'm very protective. I'm very protective over my dad, actually. And I was like, don't fucking stand on the doorstep because, I say out of the two, if it kicked off, I think probably my mum. She's the one to fucking worry about. She's the feisty one. But I think my dad. I don't want him to fight. He's 70 years old. I don't want him to fucking fight. But this guy's coming at my parents, so I'm fucking sat there going, "Oh, and we'll find someone that's older than you still, but we'll fucking slap you into next fucking Tuesday, buddy." So I go to zero to hero, and especially when it comes to a protective factor as well, I'm a nightmare. So this is all shit I have to manage. So anyway, we've gone off on a full digression there, haven't we? Fucking hell. But it's raining. It's raining out there. It's pouring. I got all sorts of emotions going on my ear right now. I got music. I got rain. I got fucking Huel because I'm trying to be fucking healthy. And I'm talking to you. There's lots going on here. It's a multitasking world in this fucking bonce of mine. So ADHD is so much more than just, I suppose to elaborate on that, ADHD is so much more than just a disorganization. There's so much incorporated it. Like addiction is something that's never talked about, but it's there, it's prevalent, it's in your fucking face. And ultimately, it gets to the point where you've got to be real. It's a constant management. To be neurodivergent is not just, there's so much negativity that isn't talked about, and there's so much positivity also. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there when it comes to mental health. But as I learn and navigate, I find things out and I understand myself, and I know that I need to draw myself out of certain situations, and I know that certain situations will trigger me. It's really important that people around me understand those triggers as well, because they need to support me. Like one of the things, my missus come back and she saw I was agitated, and she said, "You're going to your mum and dad's tomorrow, aren't you?" And I went, "Yeah." She goes, "No, you're not. You're banned." And I was like, what? She goes, because you'll just go down there looking for an argument that isn't there. He's just let your dad go to the police and fucking, or whatever, the council, whatever, and report him for obstruction. And then if he does it again, just keep doing it. And then what you'll do is you'll bombard the system. They'll put yellow lines there, stop people from fucking parking, and then fucking bosh. Or the guy will get a fine eventually, and just let them deal with it. Let the authorities deal with the fucking pain in the ass that he is. And I'm like, yeah, it is. But this goes, for me, I look at it as like, this goes beyond the parking situation. This is the fact that this guy's got the audacity to stand on the doorstep of my mum and dad and act like a cocky prick. And I don't accept that. That's unacceptable. There was nothing my dad was doing that was wrong. He was going to report them. He didn't go up to him and confront him. So this guy brought the confrontation to the table. So for me, I go, I'm going to teach this little fucking prick a lesson. You don't just walk up to somebody and start kicking off when you're actually 110% in the wrong. Nothing you've done is right. So you can't sit there. So that's the bit And again, this is where I feed into my third diagnosis, which is the autism, and it's that right and wrong, it's that black and white. I don't have a grey area, coupled with the lack of emotion is that I have lack of empathy as well. So for me, it's black and white. For me, it's that guy. That guy did something wrong, yet came to the fucking table and brought a confrontation to the table that was unnecessary and caused stress on my parents now that thinking this guy's going to fucking do something or, what's this guy going to do? And my mum and dad are like, they're almost close to retirement and they just want to relax and they don't want this shit going around. So I want to teach this fucking kid a lesson. I want to go around there and go, look, mate, I'm not someone to fuck with. And you don't bring shit to my fucking front door when you're in the wrong, you little fucking bellend. That's where I go to, and I get quite emotional about it. But it's even like now you're just talking about it. I can feel the adrenaline. I go, oh, I can fucking do it right now. And again, that is because of the lack of dopamine. But again, again and again. But for me, that's the problem. So I have a multitude of different diagnoses. ADHD. Well, I say a multitude. I have ADHD, I have autism, and I have post-traumatic stress disorder. All on the spectrum, they all fight with each other. So I think they call it it's an unofficiated is AUAD or AUADHD or ADUAD. I think it is. It's autism autistic. So it's weird because I don't like structure, but my autistic brain loves structure. My ADHD brain doesn't like structure; it likes spontaneity. My ADHD, my autistic brain side of things says, no, I need to know timings. When is it going to start? When is it going to end? I'll be there 5 minutes before, etc., etc. So I'm constantly battling a fucking devil and an angel on my shoulders, constantly, all the fucking time. And then what PTSD does is it brings anxiety. Doesn't bring much else to the plate, really, for me. Because the ADHD side of things already brings that fucking huge emotion. So I already have the deficit. So I'm already drawing in what would be classed as when you get triggers from PTSD, we often imagine things like soldiers. I've spoken about this before. It's very much. I mean, PTSD can come from anything, really. But we associate it very much with the military because PTSD is shell shock, as it used to be known from the World War II, and we remember those pictures we saw of kids really with shell shock. So it's a horrible thing, and we've sort of wrapped it up into post-traumatic stress disorder, which is like triggers anxiety, triggers high emotions. We associate loud noises and all that sort of stuff, but it can come with a lot. My PTSD is derived from 3 car crashes in 18 months, and all severe ones as well, not caused by me either. All 3, because I was commuting to work every day, an hour and a half to work and an hour and a half back. So my statistical whatever it is I'm looking for, chances, that's the word. I was trying to fucking think of a special word for that. There wasn't. My statistical fucking hell, spit it out. Put my new teeth back in. My statistical analysis or chances of having an accident are far increased when you're commuting long distances every day. And 7 days a week I was commuting 48 miles to work and 48 miles back. So, and it was all on motorways. So statistically, early hours in the morning was when I had 2 of my crashes. Early hours, like 7 o'clock, when everyone's half a fucking sleep, just want to get to work. And my third crash was a late evening, again, when most people just want to get home. And again, none of them caused by me. Horrible times. So, but the PTSD, the traumatic side of things, I've experienced quite a bit of. For a good year, I used to go past the sites. It's really weird. I used to go past the crash sites and smell sulfur. Your brain is so intelligent, but it's like a reminder. It's almost like you drive past and you get a smell of sulfur. It's really weird, but it was a reminder. Your brain telling you to protect yourself, to go slow, think about this. I learned all about this when I was, through all my therapy sessions. But yeah, triggered by the loud noise of the airbags, all of these things encompassed in. So, I have an element of anxiety, which is normally brought into play when I drive. Not only do I have, I'm going to give you, so you can imagine high anxiety, low dopamine, ADHD, autism. This is the fucking brain I'm dealing with right now, and autism, right and wrong. all of those. You've got high anxiety, you want the dopamine, so you want to fucking fight. You've got road rage, and you've got this little bit in your brain that says, teach this guy a lesson because he doesn't know right from wrong. So when it all goes wrong, when all of those fucking three come together like a nuclear reactor ready to fucking boom, when they come together like that, fucking chaos, mate. It's absolute fucking chaos. And I won't remember a fucking thing. I go into a fucking blind rage. So I have to manage. So I've spent the last 5 years, and we're going to go back now. I spent the last 5 years learning about all of this to know what the fuck is going on with my brain, because I couldn't. When I say I take risks, there's things I will never fucking talk about. I've taken risks. I pushed the boundaries to what I can do all the time. I was arrested so many times as a young kid for drunk and disorderly, mainly drunk and disorderly, common assault, all sorts of things. Because I was undiagnosed for starters, and I was managing something that nobody understood, and everyone just thought I was fucking crazy. I was crazy, but I didn't know how to manage it. I didn't have the support function, the support network I got now. That is only the support network I have now has only come 5 years ago when I turned around and said, fucking sort your life out, mate. You can't keep doing this. I was 39, and I did a complete and utter, I've said this before, complete and utter fucking change to my whole life. Quit the job I was in, quit the trade I was in, quit the life I had, and completely started afresh, everything. Because I was like, I need to start afresh. Because I'd not had the support that most people, when they get diagnosed with ADHD in young age now, I'm thankful for this. I'm thankful for people getting diagnosed with autism. I'm thankful for people getting diagnosed with borderline personality disorder or Asperger's or ADHD or whatever it may be. I'm thankful we've got some sort of psychological system now where we can pick this up, and that's growing arms and legs into psychological safety in the workplace. I'm glad. I'm elated by the fact that we've got that. Why? Because I never had it, and for the best part of 39 years, I was on the fucking teetering on the edge. There's been times where I've been close to prison because of my behaviour, and I don't mean that. There's more to that story before you start thinking, fucking, I was batshit crazy. I am batshit crazy, but I was innocent, and I got found unanimous not guilty in that situation. But I lived on the edge of I lived by the sword fucking daily because I didn't know what I just thought it was me, and I was like, "What the fuck are you taking risks like this, James? Taking risks like this because I didn't. I wasn't aware that I didn't have a dopamine level. So, and it was only when I went to the doctor and I wrote this fucking letter to the doctor because I was so sad. 5 years ago was when I turned around and I was so fucking sad. I was like, I can't keep doing this. This is horrendous. I've had 3 suicide attempts. I don't want to live anymore. And if this is fucking life where I'm like literally pushing myself and doing such stupid things to make myself what I think's happy, but dealing with rejection and sensitivity disorder afterwards because I've probably caused massive amounts of collateral damage, or I'm spending, like I did, the best part of fucking 15 years I spent like almost isolating myself because of the last incident where I stupidly got, like I said, I was arrested for common assault. And it was a really, really stupid scenario. Should never have fucking happened, but it was just me living on the edge, and I didn't know how to control that. I still don't know how to control it. I'm much, much better now than I ever have been. But and I think that's because I'm in a very, I'm in a corporate environment, probably the worst environment you can put someone with ADHD in, because it's way too professional, way too structured. However, what it does is it's grounded me for the last 5 years, and what that grounding is done by putting me in a controlled environment that was going against the grain of everything my brain wants. Because previously I haven't, previously in old roles, I was able to pretty much do what the fuck I wanted. I've been doing painting, spraying aircraft for the best part of 21 years. So it was second nature to me. That meant I could do my actual job probably in about 2 hours in a day, and then spent the rest of the time doing what the fuck I liked. I was given the freedom to navigate and do fucking fun stuff and, you know, do whatever I needed to do, because my brain was like, you're relaxed. You've done your job. You're happy. You're satisfied. The fucking men at the top are happy. Women at the top are happy. You know, do the rest of the time, earn a bit of extra money, do whatever you need to do. So I did that. So I did that for years. But then what that did is that left me in a situation where I never controlled. I was never self-aware. I was just living by the fucking seat of my pants. Honestly, I was like a fucking fighter jet pilot, just fucking living by the seat of my pants. So I recognized that and I went, right, I can't do this for another 20 fucking years. I can't go through this for another. And I'm not praying. I'm not a religious man. I'm just fucking, I was praying then. I'll tell you, I was fucking like, I can't do this. And I did. And, you know, there's people now that will talk to you. If I brought people into a room and said, you know, what am I really like? There'd be people that would say, you mask the fuck out of who you are, because there's times and scenarios where we will have a conversation and then I'll just go fucking stratospheric. Like there's no filter. Like if I'm with certain people and we say something, usually around about sex or something like that, there'll be some sort of sexual innuendo be said, and I get excited because sex is an addiction for me. Again, it's a high dopamine. It's a high having sex for an ADHD person is a high dopamine reward. And I mean it. Like, you can tell somebody who's got ADHD if it is usually their sex drive, because there's high amounts of dopamine, there's high amounts of serotonin, you get high amounts of love, affection, and you get a really, really big reward mechanism once you've orgasmed. So, so to give you a little insight, that is why most people with ADHD have a high sex drive. Russell Brand's probably the most prevalent person, celebrity that we know had, you know, basically like someone leg there, had a high sex drive. ADHD, 110%, and other things as well. So you can normally tell, but you're living by the seat of your pants with that. You get it, and normally when someone's talking about it, I'll be like, fucking hell, and then the filter will be removed. Oh yeah, fucking hell, do you remember when you fucking thumping that way? You know, man, grip it and rip it. You know, I'll just go stratospheric with it, and everyone will be like, fucking hell, James, calm down. You're at the level where you got to be professional, mate, code of conduct and all that sort of shit. And I go, oh fuck yeah. But it just goes to show how intense that masking is, to be able to work in that environment. Now, it's controlled me, absolutely controlled me. Got to me to the point where I'm able to get promoted. I've fucking flown through the channels. It's quite easy to navigate that. You look at, like, I think the autistic side of me again, and I'm going to keep chucking these in, you know, allows me to step back and look holistically quite easily, and I can see gaps where there's problems. One of the beauties of neurodivergent that people don't look at, and I think that they need to look at more, is neurodivergent people are very much bottom up thinkers. Now, I don't mean sexually. I don't mean looking at bottom up, you know, but you know, what I mean is bottom up thinking. So a lot of the leadership that has been promoted is in corporate environments is very much a strategic. So I have the ability to stand above and I strategically think holistically, and I can look at gaps and stuff, and I can see where there's gaps. That's very much the rhetoric we've had in terms of corporate environment structure. So we've often rewarded that because they can step back and you know, you need to be able to step back and not engage with the people and just look back and see the problems. I can tell you now categorically that system fucking fails, because often that's a one-sided opinion of where the problem is. What a neurodivergent will do, and this is where we need more neurodivergence in leadership. And I'm going to be selfish and say that, is we have bottom-up thinking. So in actual fact, we listen to the people at the bottom, and we see where the problems are, and we see where the problems lie. And then what we do is, when we come through the leadership channels, we fix those problems because we've seen them from the ground up, and where they're not, you know, where they're prevalent, where stuff that's often overlooked because they don't look into the granular detail. An ADHD autistic person will look at every minor detail of a process of how it works, and they'll say that's failed. It drives, and when you see that area for you know, you know, fucking hell, I can't say my fucking words here. When you see the area that needs improvement, you will go for it. and you go, okay, well, I can see that, and actually I'm going to streamline it in my head. If we just do, we've done. We've absolutely smashed it. We don't see enough of that because everybody thinks they're strategic thinking. Oh, I need a contract here and more bodies here. No, you don't. You don't need more bodies. You need to streamline the processes. So I had a conversation actually with the fucking top man, in my organization structure. And, I had because I'm reverse mentoring at the moment, which is so fucking rewarding to reverse mentor, the chief exec. And I get so much out of it because I sit there and I go, actually, you're wrong. What you're chasing is you're treating it as an afterthought. When in actual fact, we can't get it right until you get that done. So if you can't sit here and expect everything to be hunky-dory until you've done that, but no one's willing to stand there and go, you need to do that. And he came up to me and was like, he asked me a question, and I told him the truth. I was like, he said, one of the systems, he said, oh, we've got this system, and I believe it's a bolt-on system. And I was like, it's not a bolt-on system at all, mate. It's the exact same system. They've just hidden fields. They're just fucking talking bullshit. So, he's, I had an impression about that. And I was like, not an impression, mate. I see it fucking every day. So bottom-up thinking, there's not enough of it. And also you'll find a lot of the people that are strategic thinking have stepped back a long time ago because that's the way that they were told to step away from the working groups, the operational level, and think strategically. How can we improve the process? We get it wrong because it's a fucking one-sided opinion. It's your opinion on what's going to go wrong. Now, sometimes that does work. Sometimes sometimes someone will come with a good idea, or someone's worked for an organization where strategically that worked. But often what you'll see is that person is pulling knowledge from the operational level of another organization and trying to draft it into this organization. So you might have stepped back, but you're only stepping back with the knowledge and experience that you've gained from an operational level from somewhere else and trying to incorporate it here because you think it works here because it worked there. Now, that's not always the case because that might be a different organization doing a different thing, a different process. In actual fact, you don't. You need to start working from the operational level and feeding back again, and then implementing things as you go along. Very bottom up thinking. So neurodivergents are fucking absolute fucking heroes at that. And that's one thing, for me that I relish on is that bottom up thinking. I don't even know where I was going with that, but it just goes to show that there's elements of neurodivergent, and I think the problem with neurodivergency is. Because it's attached to what we class as the disabilities, so Asperger's, autism. Autism inherently, we look at autism as very much. People aren't really aware that autism is spectrum based, and it depends on how you've got what level of that spectrum base you're on. You can get people that have got autism to the 10th degree, if you like, to the point where they're non-verbal. But everybody will tarnish everybody with that non-verbal opinion, as in like, oh, as soon as you say you've got autism, someone goes, oh, fucking hell, mate, he's fucking crazy, or he's non-verbal, or he does this, he's just fucking crazy. No, that's not how it works. We've all got it. Neurodivergent, not all of us, because that thing fucks me off as well. When everyone says, well, we've got a little bit of it. No, we fucking haven't, you cunt. Oh, I nearly fucking swore there. I was so angry because that's a passionate bit about me there, because I was like, no, listen. Because it's horrible. Okay, it's horrible to have. Neurodivergent is not a place in the modern world. Okay, I go back to it was a hunter-gatherer situation. Okay, we had to hunt and gather food. We don't do that. We go to the shop and we fucking buy things now. So I've got all this rage to go out and fight animals, and there's no animals to fucking fight. Autism is very much Elon Musk is a prime example. Most people in high level roles, CEOs and stuff, have got autism because they're very much bottom up, or they're very much strategic thinkers, or they'll look at processes and policies and how to adapt things. They're very much black and white, so they say it as it is. One thing I always get told is, James is quite blunt. Yeah, I am, because there's no empathy, no emotion. There's a problem, just get it fucking done. Okay, well, I can't do it because why can't you do it? It's not fucking hard. Let's get you trained. Let's do it, whatever. I don't get the empathy level, which is it's good, but it's also bad, because I will just fucking write it out exactly as it is, and it is normally I'll always spit facts. I'm always spitting facts, but sometimes a non-neurodivergent person, I'm categorizing them here. I've noticed that a lot. I'm trying not to, but I'm just trying to put a perspective on the brains and the power of the brains. will look at that as quite intense. If I come up and they'll be like, fucking hell, he's quite intense though. No, I just want to get shit done. I just want to get shit done, get it stressed, get it processed, and get it fucking out. Let's move on to the next fucking problem. And I think for me, that's one of the biggest issues I think I've encountered is trying to understand how that works. And like I said, for me, the journey started 5 years ago, and I learned so much. I've gone out and done courses. I've got a consistent psychiatrist that I go once a month and I vent to, who is the second person that knows me in depth, because in fact, actually, probably, which is going to sound really horrible, but it's not. I'd say my therapist probably knows me the best. Mainly because, in fact, hold on, I'm going to sip my Hue. I've been chatting for a bit there. I got a little bit of a dry throat. Just a little wet the whistle, you know what I mean? I think when I first started therapy, I was very much a shy person. I very much didn't really articulate what I needed to. Just told them what I needed them to hear to know that there was a problem, which resulted in the diagnosis of permanent PTSD, because that was like, okay, well, I was assessed for bipolar disorder. I was on the borderline of bipolar disorder, but they didn't diagnose me because there's such huge implications with bipolar disorder in terms of your driving license and travel that it would have hindered a lot of my life. And they were like, we can't assess you. You are in a massive manic depression mode. So I've been through the PTSD psychiatry process. I've been through the bipolar psychiatry process. I've been through the anxiety personality disorder process. And the only one that came out prevalent was PTSD at the time. When I was diagnosed with PTSD, I was still feeling there was something wrong, which has resulted in a letter being sent. As I said, I caveat that with the letter that was sent to my doctor. And I wrote a 3-page letter, and I haven't written, not an email, not a fucking, it was a handwritten, take me back to the fucking 90s where everything, it was almost like a handwritten love letter. That's probably the emotion I can say that was into it. I was sat there and I wrote down everything. I spoke about how, I binge eat really, really badly when I'm really sad. And then what I do is I used to make myself sick. Now, it wasn't bulimia, in that sense, because, that I was asked about that question. And it wasn't about bulimia. It was about the fact that I wanted to get the high, the intensity from the sugar, as I now know. I talk about the risk of sex and the high sex drive and how it's, almost ruined my almost ruined my relationship, because I'm asking for it. I want it every fucking day, 4 days of fucking 4 times a day, and I want it here, positions here, this, fucking tools, whips, chains, fucking whatever you can get hold of. Just want to push the boundaries. That's not a conventional fucking relationship. That's that's not conventional. That's not what we do in life. We've got to be a bit batshit crazy, both of you, to do that. Sorry, I'm going to realize I'm getting shouty. I got a bit excited. I mentioned sex. But for me, so I've been through there. I wrote a letter about that. I wrote a letter about, worrying about my life and my emotion in terms of how I react, how I'm a fighter, how I look for adrenaline speeds. I told him about the experience where I was doing 140 miles an hour at one point, and because the adrenaline was so high, and I went on the other side of the road because the anxiety took over and I didn't want to be there anymore, and I was just going to end it. I was just like, I'm doing the adrenaline's fucking high, and I went straight to, I don't want to be here anymore, let's go on the other side of the road. I sold my bike the next week, by the way, because that was where my mindset went. So that was something I was like, I can't do that anymore. I'm not treating my motorbike, because everyone said to me, why did you sell your motorbike? It was my dream bike. It was a Valentino Rossi replica, number 100 of 196. In my favorite Yamaha blue colors. It was it was the R6 S. It was the race tune version. It was a fucking beautiful bike. I mean, a rocket. It was unmanageable, but it was my dream bike. And to be fair, I wish I'd kept it just to have it in the fucking garage to look at, because it would have only appreciated in value. But I couldn't, because my mental state was unpredictable. And this is where I say about the unpredictability. So I have to take myself, again, I have to mitigate that risk. So my mitigation was, take the fucking bike out of the situation, mate, because you don't know what you're going to do. When you're looking down doing 140 odd mile an hour, you're on the other side of the road going, he'll be gone in a second. I'm not happy, you know. And it was because the reason that happened was because I was doing that speed, but I didn't get the dopamine from it. I recall it now because, you know, it was prevalent in my life. You know, that was one of the times I didn't want to be here. And I remember categorically looking down, and I was like, oh, fucking hell. And I'm literally going like this, you know, the fucking throttle is cranked back. And I'm looking down, and it's almost like slow motion. You know, it's really weird because a real big positive to an ADHD brain is when there's chaos ensued around you, the adrenaline that's posted by, it slows everything down for you. Now that seems artificial, seems weird, but it is true. I don't care what anyone fucking says. When there's chaos going around, you everything's slow. You kind of take a beat and you kind of look around and you kind of go, ooh, you know, that's happening over there. You know, I've been in so many situations where I've gone, you know, I've been in situations before when I was younger where, you know, I remember it fucking clear as day. I was in a pub and there was my mate was kicking off with another mate, and then basically it turned into a bit of a Royal Rumble in the car park of this thing. You know, all of us were out. There was a fucking about 20 of us soldiers out, which is chaos anyway, in the best fucking shape of terms. We'd all been drinking all day on a session, and the locals had decided to give it a fucking, you know, a few beans. I wasn't going to get involved in it because, again, I was trying to be sensible. But it was kicking off so badly that basically I was like, I remember it slowed right down, and I was like, okay, they're in the middle. They're the problem. So I just remember like walking over like it was slow motion, like just fucking grabbed my mate by the collar, and I was like, fucking come here. Started shouting, shut the fuck up, but so loud. It was like a fucking, honestly, my mate described it as like a war cry. He said everybody just fucking stopped. And they were like, and I had hold of the fucking instigator, and I fucking threw him in the pub, and I went, right, let's get a beer. And everybody just stopped and get a beer. Now that sounds like fucking, yeah, of course, like some sort of fucking hero. I'm not a hero, but it genuinely worked. And it's that fight or flight. You see the situation, and you're very much like that with ADHD. You're very much like, you know, you kind of just slow down. You kind of go, okay, there's fucking issues here. Well, that's a problem. And that's a problem. Don't worry about that. Just cool. I had an incident at work, for instance. One of my colleagues, there was the toilet blocked upstairs on the 3rd floor, and it basically was fucking showering piss and shit down the 3 floors. And he came in and he was fucking full on panicking. And I went, okay, mate, what we got to do? We got to, so if you switch the fucking cistern off, and I just started talking to him, and he was like, no. So I walked upstairs, I lifted the top off, switched the cistern off, went out downstairs, told him to go and speak to the fire brigade to get some spillage kits, start getting the spillage kits. I said, block off this area. I said, I'm going to ring the cleaning company to come out and do an emergency clean so we can get it done overnight. I'm going to ring the FM provider, tell them to get someone down here and get it rectified, make sure that we've got it done and unblocked. Job done. So I sorted it all out, but it was almost like he came in like fucking chaos. And I was like, don't worry about it, mate. To do that. And you have this ability to just, because we're so used to chaos, because I'm so used to chaos in my brain all the fucking time, it never switches off. It genuinely never switches off. You learn to live with it. So when people see chaos, you're like, this is just a normal day for me, mate. You know what I mean? I remember in Afghan once, and it's so fucking real. I was sat down and I was in Fob Price at the time, well, just outside Fob Price, and we were getting there was rounds fucking flying down, like literally flying down. One of the guys had been fucking hit, and there was this fucking Afghan National Army guy. He was stood there with a fucking RPG through this hole in the fucking wall, and he was fucking, and all you heard is whoosh, and this fucking RPG go off. There's this fucking guy with an SA-80 in this other hole, this fucking 17-year-old lad going, get some, get some. I got it on video. It's fucking absolutely. And I remember being sat there against a wall, and there was an Apache, not an Apache, sorry, a Lynx going round, and a Chinook, because we needed MERT, so Medical Emergency Response Team. We needed the MERT in, so they need to come down, pick this lead up. So we needed this fucking Lynx to come around. We were waiting on the Apache coming in, but it was so surreal because there was like, you could literally hear the fucking rounds bouncing off the fucking wall. You could hear fucking rounds coming out of your gun. There was like all the time, like from different fucking areas. And then you had this fucking helicopter just ready to fucking come in. And I've got the video of it coming in. It comes in, and goes, and it's like this fucking big Chinook in this fucking fob, like literally like that. It's ass in the air, slams down. The fucking guys run on the back, and it's like, and it's like fucking lift, fucking power going everywhere, and there's still fucking guys going, get some. But I was sat there and I was like, I mean, first off, I thought to myself, I shouldn't really be here. I don't want to be there. I was like, I don't want to be there. I'm in the RAF, mate. I don't fucking sign up for this shit. I'm not a soldier. I was like, fucking sat there. I'm pretty sure I pissed myself a little bit. But for me, the weird thing was I picked up to the point where it's so vivid in my brain now. If I was good enough artist, I could draw you a picture of exactly where I was sat, who I was looking at. You know, I could tell you there was 3 holes to the left. One had a fucking SA in it. One was nothing. One was an RPG. I can tell you where they were positioned. I can tell it's so vivid because it was such an intense experience for me that it is fucking scalded. It's locked in that memory in my brain for life. And again, that's the problem with those situations. When you get so much adrenaline, it puts such an intense feeling of dopamine, serotonin, adrenaline. It ingrains it into your body, into your brain, to know how you did that, to go, I want that fucking back again. I absolutely want that back again. So you remember it so vividly that you sit there and you go, I want it to happen again. So you know how you did it. So it's like, I know for instance, there's certain situations where I go, I was in that situation there, that was a bit fucking super intense. I want to do it again. And that's an addiction, because it's like if I went and had fucking wild sex in a fucking forest somewhere, I don't know, whatever, you might get caught, put that, and I'm talking about sex because that's probably one of the easiest things for me to talk about as a male. But if you have wild, spontaneous random sex somewhere, the adrenaline is so high, you want that back. Now, a lot of people would suggest, oh, you've done it once, we've had a bit of fun. Oh, that was a bit exciting. Yeah, nice one. We won't do that again. It was dangerous. I'll go, no, I want the fucking dopamine from that, because I didn't realize how intense that dopamine was. And it's the same as like racing. If you go to a certain location or do a certain thing on a motorbike or whatever it may be, you get the excitement. It's like I've got a real vivid memory of living in a place called Corsham. Now, I had such a good time as a teenager there, from the age of 13 to about 15, I think I left. I had such a good experience there because it was my first kiss. It was my first shag, with a girl called Lorna, and I remember it. It was in a fucking self-made fucking tent type thing that we had at the back when we were camping one night. I have so many good memories of like carting down hills and building a cart. We built a cart out of what used to be, the old prams, but the old prams with the big fuck off wheels and the big, not the modern ones now, but they used to have like an aluminium frame on them, so a steel frame on them, so you could literally just take the pram off, put a bit of a pallet on top of it, and just fucking drive down and put a bit of string on the wheels, and you were like, down this fuck off hill with a speed rump at the end, jump at the end. I remember having my first time I got a catapult, and I was fucking taking birds out. Get away with that them days, wouldn't do that nowadays, mate. We'd have fucking all sorts. We'd have fucking Royal Society Prevents Cruelty to fucking Birds or whatever it is on me, fucking killing me now. But I do remember so much about that place. I had a really good school career. I wasn't bullied. There was so much positivity that I want to retire there. Now, I've gone back there as an adult, and it is not the same. So I'm almost like, I won't go back there again, because I'm reluctant to undo that really good memory that I have, because it is giving me so much. But that's the problem when you don't get the dopamine. Those intense highs that you have, when they do come, they emboss into your brain so much that you chase them. And that's the problem. That's the addiction. Because it's like, for me, for instance, I've never been into gambling. Now, you would think normally that, as someone with an addictive personality, that I'd get into gambling. No, I don't, because the risk to reward is too high. So in terms of, I've got to put too much risk into my financial, into my finances, and the reward is too little for what I would expect. I'm not stupid enough. And again, the real positive to autism is I research and learn everything. So my ADHD brain will go fucking spontaneity. My autistic brain will go, well, hold on, just learn about that. And I've learned so much about it's for instance, I'm not stupid enough to know that I'm not going to go inject myself with heroin, because the risk to reward is too huge. When I was younger, I was like, yeah, I know, but you realize how intense that fucking high is from heroin. When I was young, stupid, and didn't really have a brain to fucking manage it. And you're like, but you see, people say you go to a new dimension. And you're sat there going, but after the first time, you're addicted, and then your whole life goes downhill because of this. So you chase the dragon. So I know that the risk to reward is not worth it. So my ADHD brain, if I didn't have the autistic side, would have been an addict by now of some description. I'd be addicted to gambling, drinking, or something else, or fucking drugs. I haven't, because I've researched things and I've learned things along the way. So I think it's pretty unique when you've got the autistic side of your brain as well, because you're allowed to learn and evolve and adapt. So and understand it, so you don't get caught up in it. Whereas, for instance, for me, sex is a really low risk to a degree, but massive reward. So that's the addiction side of things. Drink is fairly low risk, but really good reward in terms I get drunk, I get to fucking act like a knobhead, I get to fall around like a bit of a dick. The risk is, you fuck your heart livers up and you put on weight. As I found, I've been off the booze a little bit for best part of 6 months, and I've lost 2.5 stone, coupled with a bit of exercise and cutting out bread as well. So but just because I was drinking a litre of gin a weekend and about 12 beers. Why? No reason. I like the flavour. Just fucking like the flavour, not the fact that it fucking made me completely switch off and made me go to sleep. And it was always a shit night's sleep. I always felt hungover, always felt depressed, but I was like, at least I'm sleeping, because I wasn't sleeping very well. So I know that. So I think that that's the reason why. So but you've got to be so careful when you do that, because if the risk is balanced with the reward, and you teeter and you go, oh, what is the risk? I'm not sure what the risk will be here, but I'm gonna fucking go for it. And that's when sometimes you go, oh fuck, I didn't realize the risk was that. Oh shit. And then that's when you go, oh fuck, there's collateral damage. So it's a real minefield. It's a treacherous minefield to try and navigate. But we're here, we're learning, and I think this is the beauty. As I go back to what I was saying, I understand enough about myself to learn more and more about myself. So I know what I need. I know when I need something, I need to talk up a little bit more. And it was very much, like I said, the reason I've been so long without talking on this is a multitude of reasons, really. One, like I said, I was trying my hardest to use the limited resources I had mentally to just survive. I'd almost encroached into burnout, mainly because I usually have a week off in August and a week off to switch off. I didn't this time because I'd booked a week away with my friends to Benidorm. So I do this thing every year where I go and have a bit of a chaos week, or not even a week, it's 4 nights. In Benidorm, because it's like a 90s disco show, and you get to act like a fucking child, and men are predominantly children. We're not mature, especially as I've told you before. ADHD brains have been scientifically proven to mature at least 10 years behind a non-neurodivergent or neurotypical person. You tend to be about 10 years behind. So if I'm 44 now, I've got the mental age of 34. So when I was 34, when you normally start maturing, I was actually 24. And that's the problem. And that's one of the biggest things that is not spoken about with ADHD is the brain maturity. So we act like children a lot longer because we don't mature. So now I'm 44. I'm almost in the, I would say mentally I'm 34. So I would say mentally I'm ready for a child. I'm ready for a business career. I'm ready to settle down. Stupidly, I settled down and did all of that career and the children's thing when I was 24. So I was basically about 14. Give or take the scientific, it's not dog years, it's not accurate. You just mature at a slower pace. But as you get older, that pace increases. Yeah, it's really important to understand that, because now I'm starting to see the signs that I should have done at 24. So although to a degree mentally I knew what I wanted because I was driven by autism, so I was driven by the need for structure, I was driven by the need for promotion. I could see that I needed to get promotion. I needed to do X, Y, and Z. I needed to upskill myself. I needed to show these qualities. What that gave me is more money. What that in turn gave me was, because the ADHD brain wanted the money to spend to get the dopamine to go and buy things, to do stupid shit like wakeboarding or paddleboarding or fucking buy a motorbike or buy a fast car. I was able to balance that a little bit with my brain going, well, fucking, you can slow down for just a fucking fraction, mate. I'm going to earn a bit of money. I'm going to give you more money so you can spend and keep you satisfied. So I'm trading with myself all the fucking time. And I'm not trading with other people. I'm trading with myself. So which is, again, a reason why I get upset when people hold me back, because I'm like, you're holding me back from not keeping myself happy. I don't give a fuck about you. I care about me. And I know that if I get promoted and I can do that job, because I know I can do that job, I get promoted, I get more money. With more money, I get to do more things. With more things, I get to live my life more happier, better. So stop this, because I need this. It's not for you. You're being very selfish. And I'm looking in the camera at the people that do that. So fucking stop being selfish. So it's a constant battle. It's a constant battle between them talking to each other on my shoulder, and often it's a case of who's going to fucking win. If I can get an element of dopamine, and what happens is, normally if I learn something and that learning gets me closer to what I want, it almost feeds a little bit of a dopamine injection, because my brain goes, well, we're getting closer to a bit more money. What does that mean? Ooh, we get some more exciting shit, so this is all stuff we just don't talk about, but it is a constant battle, which is why I've always been in debt, because I've always wanted new things. I've got a simulator there. I've got fucking darts board up here. I've got a man cave that most people don't fucking have. I've got a nice fucking camper van. All these things are because I'm frivolous. I'm frivolous because I think that's what makes me happy. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't. It really doesn't, because then you end up, the autistic brain goes, right, you've spent too much now, and now I need you to sit the fuck down and calm down whilst I pick up the pieces again. And that's often what happens. He's always picking up the pieces. Talking to myself like I'm in third person. So this is giving you an element of the craziness, because this is who I talk to every day. I talk crazily in here. Like, you shut the fuck up, you calm down. He needs to do his bit to get him up here. So let him concentrate, because you've let the emotional drivers fucking go off too soon. I knew that when I sent an email to my boss saying, why have you fucking held me back? Why did you not consider me? That was the emotional dysregulation, where I'd gone into, where I could see that I wasn't going to get promoted, and it pissed me off because I wasn't able to then get that extra money. That extra money would have fed me feeling happy about doing other things. So my emotional was, fucking, let's get keyboard warrior on. Why did you fucking hold back on me, mate? Why'd you hold back on me? And again, all that does is just ruin all integrity for who you are. So now, the other side of the brain's picking up the pieces, going like, calm the fuck down, mate. Let me take control. Let me show you what we can do again. So it's a constant battle. I'm talking to myself as a third person all the fucking time. It's a crazy place to live. I'm going to quickly skip over. I'm going to talk. I spoke to you about, and this is I suppose this is an element of the mental health bit I want to elaborate on. I touched on something just on my last podcast, so I apologise that I dropped a bit of a bombshell, and then basically went off. I was meant to come back, but again, I was in burnout phase, and I needed that holiday. I've come back from that holiday since, so like I said, I prioritise family and work, because they're the bills and they're the people that look after me. And I prioritised everything just on the basis of going away for Benidorm. I came back from Benidorm a week ago, and I've managed to catch up with work. And today I feel the happiest I've felt in a long time. So I feel I'm able to talk. I wanted to touch base on a bit of a mental health spin, really. And it's mainly because I touched on the base that my daughter was sexually assaulted when I was younger. And the reason I brought that up as a point was because it's the important point of, and I wrote this down actually, I'm going to kind of cast my mind over it because I think it's important. And I put down, my question was, because I've still been taking notes as I've been, offline, if you like, because I wanted topics to talk about. And I still think about things, even though I don't get the time to sit down, and I've got to be in the right mindset, because the last thing I want to be is in the wrong mindset and then not deliver a good message, because mental health, it's really important. It just goes to show, an insight into the brain, really. But I touched on this, and I put down, why did I share that with public? It was a personal thing. And it was a personal thing. It was a very, very personal thing, actually. And why would I put that out there? Well, I put it out there because it is a personal thing, but it was just a summary, really, or a snapshot into what potentially people are going on in their lives that you don't know about. Now, there's people in work that do know about this that's happened in my life, and the reason I've explained that to them is because not that I want sympathy, but because there may be days where I have an off day. There may be days where I spoke to you, where my daughter's having an off day, and that's the collateral damage is that I've had to pick up the pieces of that. And what that does inherently when it pick up the pieces for that is it reinvigorates the memory. It brings the memory back to the forefront, which then makes me emotional, which makes me angry, which makes me want to murder. In inverted commas, I wouldn't do it, but it makes me want to fucking teach this fucking kid a lesson because of what he's taken away from my daughter. The reason I've explained that is because I think it's really, you've got to be mindful about, what you say to people at work and in life and when you're going around. I'm very much of the ilk. I try to be as self-aware as I can with regards to how I talk about people at work and who I talk to, and more importantly, how I talk to them. I never talk derogatory. I never talk negatively. And I try to be as sympathetic as possible because people go through struggles all the time we don't know about. Like, that was a highly personal thing, but at the same time, it impacted my life in a significant way. It changed my outlook. It changed my family dynamic. It changed my daughter for the worst. So, and I don't mean the worst because that's wrong. Let me retract that statement. It didn't change my daughter for the worse. It had no bearing on how it changed my daughter because I won't let it change my daughter. We've worked on the basis that it will not define her. We've worked on the basis it will not define the family. I've worked on the basis that we will work through this as a family unit. And that's what we've done for the best part of 3 years. We've done that. And the reason we've come through the other side unscathed a little bit, or unscathed as it could have been, was because we've worked together as a family. We've acknowledged that there was problems and we've stood there and we've faced them. I've faced my daughter screaming at me, drunk, saying that I don't love her. I've stood there in front saying it's all my fault, and I've been the punch bag. I will always be the punch bag for my daughters and my family because that's what I do. I'm thick enough skinned to understand, and to be perfectly honest, they've all been subjected to being a potential punch bag for me when I was, and I don't mean physically punch bag, but I've always been emotionally articulate, and like I said, years ago, before I was diagnosed and before I was on this journey of, mental stability and sorting myself out, I very much reacted in negative ways. And they were always a collateral damage of me shouting and being a knob, basically just going, fucking right, it's your fucking fault. So at the end of the day, I'm going to sit there and I'll be that punch bag if it helps my daughter to relieve the frustration and the anger in a controlled manner, I would absolutely do that. That's my purpose as a dad. My job is to give myself to my daughter to make sure her life is positive. So if we can turn that into a positive spin, which is absolutely what we've done here. So I shared that because it's important to understand that people can go through life with things that you can't even fathom. Like, I never thought I would ever get to a point where I would be sat in a courtroom talking about my daughter being sexually assaulted to the degree that she was. I never thought I would sit there and have to consolidate my wife and make her, and try to explain to her that, this isn't men, because she blamed men for it. She said, why has this happened to our daughter? Very much why. I was like, I don't know why. I can't tell you why. I don't know what was his mindset. But at the same time, what I can tell you is, you've lived with so I play devil's advocate all the time, and I say, well, look at my mindset. You've seen me go from zero to hero. The mind is a complex environment, it's a complex landscape, and we all have different processes. We all have different, we've all been subjected to different ways of being, for growing up and being nurtured by our parents. Our parents didn't have a handbook. I don't have a handbook. We don't have a handbook for life. We don't know what that kid was doing. We do now. We know he was addicted to porn, and he thought that was what fucking happened. So, I'm not, this isn't a blame culture. He got his just desserts, and he got his he got his he got arrested and everything, and then everything that came to him, has happened. It's affected the rest of his life. So for me, that's all I can wish for, is that he was hindered in his life as much as he's hindered mine. But the reason I told you that was because we don't know what's going on behind closed doors. We very much don't. I don't know half of what people have been through. I've certainly shared this story with 5 people in work, and out of those 5 people I've shared it with, all 5 of those people shared something relatively difficult in their life, and one of them was more so than I'd encountered. So that was what made me acutely aware of my surroundings, actually, because I shared a story that I thought was, I'd had a bad week, and it resulted in me reacting negatively. It was at the same time I'd been overlooked for promotion. It's at the same time something had happened at home with my daughter, and when she went out into town, and somebody had berated her for basically for reporting this incident to the police in the first place and ruining this kid's life. So she obviously saw that as quite a negative, in the sense that it's like, he ruined mine. I don't know what you're saying. He's the one that sexually assaulted me. I'm not going to give him sympathy. I've just reported a criminal act. So, but of course, what it did was it brought it up. She'd been drinking, came home. That then, projected into a family disagreement, in terms of, I got the barrage for things. So I had to be a verbal punch bag, emotional punch bag for the evening, which then brought up massive amounts of emotion for me, because I was like, fuck, why am I getting this, and although I will always do it, I'll always be the verbal punch bag. I still don't know why, you still question, why am I the fucking punch bag? But you do, because who else is she going to vent to? But it's really important that, so I'd had a bad week, so I'd shared it with the people that I'd had a bad week with, and I'd gone, this is what's happened, and they were like, fucking hell, can I share something with you? And I was like, yeah. And then they shared a story with me, and I was like, oh, okay, fucking hell, I really, but it just made me realize that we're all going through life with stuff that we've done and gone on. So it doesn't excuse how we talk to people. So it made me really, really reflect and really, really think on that. And I was like, fucking hell. So it's important that we look after each other. I suppose the crux of it really is we need to look after each other. We should be there for each other. And the reason I shared that on this open platform was because there's things that we go through that we don't know what they've done. So try and be a bit sympathetic, But I think it's also on the purpose of trying to explain what you're going through, So I was acutely aware of that and how I acted. So I explained to the person, sorry, I was going through something. It is inexcusable. I shouldn't have sent that email. It was only, it was sticks and stones may break my bones and all that jazz. But words will never hurt me. It was very much of the ilk that words will never hurt you, but it was uncalled for. So I sort of explained. So I think I owed that kind of responsibility to say, I'm sorry, I had a bad week. It won't happen again. It was out of character. I acknowledge that. What I did is I learned from that, and then what I did was I raised it with my psychiatrist, and then we spoke about it, and then we helped each other, So, and I was able to bring the lessons learned from that piece home, and then help my daughter again. So we got to a steady state again. So it all worked itself out nicely because I was open and honest and transparent about myself. I appreciate that some people don't want to share things, but I'm willing to share if it raises awareness on the type of things that can go on in our lives that people don't understand or realize. So when you're in work and you're listening to somebody just be a complete and utter fucking bellend, and you're like, mate, life's too short, just chill the fuck out, mate, all right? There's people going through fucking all sorts of shit, and you're sat in here, and what it does is actually, I think for me, it's calmed me down massively, because it puts life into perspective. So when I go to work or even at home, or I'm going down situations now and I deal with certain situations, certain scenarios, if I'm quick enough to think about that as a how I reacted against that, I go, mate, life's too short. Let it fucking go. Let it go. As long as it's not a direct threat or a direct fucking insult to me or someone I love, let it fucking go, mate. It's very much like that. You have to get to the point where you go, fuck it. I can't keep dealing with this. I'm just going to let that shit go. because all you do is you just build up stress, you build up problems, you store anger, and then when it does come out, often 9 times out of 10 it will be the wrong time it's come out, but that person's picked it up for you and you've gone, okay, now I've got no emotional stability, I'm a fucking crazed loon, here I am, let's fucking go. So you've got to be so careful. So I think the reason I raised that was not I think I raised it for awareness. I raised it for awareness because it's important that we understand that people are going through things. It's important that, and also I think it's just as important to understand that people go through these things and they're still functioning. So kudos to you to still function. I still went to work every day, even though, and I remember going and telling my boss once, and I said to my boss, just to let you know, this happened last week. And he literally looked at me as if to say, all right, well, what are you fucking telling me for? I'm telling you because I want you to be acutely aware, mate, that I might be a bit emotionally unstable right now. So I think it's also, but then the audience might not want to hear. And you're like, fucking hell. So you got to be careful how you take the audience as well. So be careful about what information you divulge. Sometimes I'm an oversharer. So I'm going to tell you exactly the details you are. I'm an oversharer. That's fucking what I do. I overshare. But I think that gives me the importance to understand, because I'm oversharing, what life really is. Because we hide behind the premise that life's good, but life is fucking tough. I'll be honest with you. There's nothing. Can categorically say nothing in my life has been easy. And unless you get gifted a large sum of money through inheritance, or you've got some of that old money where somebody fucking invested in the right thing at the right time, life's fucking hard for a good 80% of us. A good 80% of us, life is hard. I think for me, I enjoy talking because this is my way of offloading problems and things I encounter. Like I said, I talk about, I wrote that down. I'm going to go, what else I wrote down? I wrote down, this is another statement here. So, and it's work related. I put, it never breaks the people that don't know how to do their job. And again, that was a mental health state, that if you're going into work and somebody doesn't know how to do, then if somebody doesn't know they're doing their job wrong, or they're neurotypical and that's their extent of their knowledge and experience, but you're asking them to do more and they're failing, they're never going to know they're going to fail. So someone's always going to have to pick up their pieces. It was prevalent for me at the time because I was picking up the pieces for other people. And I was like, and the argument was, well, they need to understand what their job is. Well, maybe they don't understand their job. Maybe they can't do their job. Maybe they're not wired to do that job. I've understood recently that there's people in jobs that just should not be in their fucking job. There was one person, I do a part of a mental health first aider thing. It's called EEC. And basically, it's you sort of look at mental health psychology. And I had somebody come up to me and go, I've got this person, and they look after safety alerts, but they're getting mental health triggers because they're looking at mental health safety alerts. People are putting in safety alerts for their mental health at the moment, psychological safety and all this, and they're getting triggered. And I go, well, maybe, just maybe, have you spoke to them and have you understood what they are? I said, well, yeah, actually they are neurodivergent. They're autistic. And I went, okay, so you've got someone who's autistic triaging safety alerts that are mental health related. And they don't see anything come to fruition at the end. They just basically take the information and they give it to the right person. So you've got somebody with an eye for detail that's looking at everything, that is taking on an emotion because they realize there's a right or wrong situation here, because they're autistic, so they'll see black and white, they won't see a gray area, and they'll want to know what's happening to that person, and you've got them in that position. Yes, I'll tell you now, I don't think they're the right person for the job. Oh no, we're thinking of giving them training. No, their mindset is not geared to do that type of job, because they will look at every detail, they will worry about every detail, they will want to know why that person has put that in. They will want black and white answers. You can't give them black and white answers, so they're just going to sit and take that home. They're going to procrastinate on that. That's often what I do. I had a negative situation last week that resulted in me spending 2 hours because somebody was going to raise something at a meeting that would have predominantly been against me, and it was almost like I hadn't done my job. So I procrastinated on that, took it home, and did 2 hours of research against what was being brought to the table. So I knew I was ready to defend myself in the meeting. And in the meeting, obliterated them, because I was like, you've brought this to the table, but you haven't done all of this in terms of the policy, in terms of the contract. And I went to fucking town. But they don't realize that the repercussions for that was I procrastinated for 2 hours. I did an extra unpaid 2 hours work. I slept about it. I wrote emails to myself about it. And I wrote notes in my book about it because I didn't let it go. Am I the wrong person for the job? No, the process was wrong, or the way the process was being brought to me was wrong. So I had no opportunity to challenge it correctly. So I felt the defense need. You've got somebody with autism that is triaging data with an emotional content linked to it and a black and white answer, but they don't see the answer. Oh no, but we investigate it. So, but do they see the results of the end investigation? No. Okay, so they're not closing that loop then. So something I talk about with autism all the time is closing the loop. Something I struggle with in my environment 110% is because it's really hard to close the loop, because normally to close the loop, it's finance and resources, which is like getting blood out of a stone, quite frankly. So you'll never quite finish it. If you don't, anybody with autism, if you can't physically close that loop of whatever task there is they're doing, you're going to get problems. Is the easiest way to say it. Is you're going to get problems. You'll get, for me, I want to close, because of the ADHD, I want to close that loop as fast as I can, because I want the dopamine for completion. The autistic wants to do it in all of the detail, but knows there's going to be a barrier at the end. So he's going to sit there and have that. And I'm juggling things for months on end, sat there unfinished, stressing me out constantly, because I can't finish the fucking loop. Or I'll get to a certain point and that loop will be taken off me and go to another department. Now I go, I don't know if that's finished. There's a film, I can't remember his fucking name in it, where he's the accountant. What if you ever want to know? I think he's got Asperger's, but if you ever want to know about the frustrations linked, so Asperger's is quite a heavy. That you need that loop to close. Autism is kind of the same. You need to close that loop. So if you don't, there's an element of frustration. So when he gets frustrated, what he does is he goes into a room, he puts on massive amounts of fucking like flashing lights, he puts on real heavy rock, and he fucking beats his fucking legs with a roller, a rolling pin. So it's pain. So what he's doing there is to block the fact that he hasn't closed the loop. He is activating every sensor in his body to try and calm them down. So his brain, his pain receptors, his hearing, his eyes, his smell, his everything, all of his senses are being massively overloaded to calm them down. Now that seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? But it's not counterintuitive, because ADHD autistic brains, they rely on that because that's a deficit. So what you do is you overwhelm it to exhaust it. So what I do is, if I'm struggling with ADHD and a situation comes along, what I'll normally jump in is I'll go straight fucking to hero. I'll jump in fucking 2 feet first. I'll massively overwhelm myself and overload myself to tire myself out. The autistic side of things, and me, to calm that down, I will massively doom scroll. I'll massively overload myself with YouTube videos. So I'll take on so much information that my body goes, I need to process this. And then what it tries to do is it tries to sort all the information out. So it massively overwhelms myself. And that's the only way I can exhaust myself. It's the only way I can tire myself out. If I go into work and I don't have a day where I'm doing work because people want to talk to me, people don't understand I don't want to talk. The reason I don't want to talk is because I want to do things. Because if I do things, I get results, I close loops, I feel happy, I get content, I go to sleep. By talking, and I have one of those days where I don't talk, I often come home and I have to overwhelm myself. So I'll have loud music on, I'll play sim racing, or I'll play Battlefield, and I'll sit there and I'll overwhelm my senses to exhaust myself. It's very much like caffeine. Caffeine for ADHD does not have a similar effect. Caffeine calms us down. So anyone that sit there drinking energy drinks or coffee and loads of fucking coffee, and they go, oh, do you get the jitters? No, I don't get the jitters. I actually fall asleep because it has an adverse effect on me. It calms me down. No, drugs and drink don't have the same effect on an ADHD brain. For me, I don't get drunk with ADHD. I do not physically get drunk unless I take fucking like ibuprofen or something with it to completely and utterly overwhelm me and knock out the sensors, that part of my sensory brain that looks at compos mentis. I need to dull that down by taking fucking ibuprofen before I drink, which is counterintuitive. People say you get drunk quicker. No, you don't. What it does, it gets me drunk. It doesn't get me drunk quicker, it just gets me drunk. If I don't, I will just keep drinking, because all it does is calm my brain down, makes me. Whereas what it normally does for people with drink is you'll get to the point where you're paralytic and you're like comatose. No, it gets me to the point where I'm just sat there going like, okay, well, I'm actually calm for once. That's because I'm on chaos level. I'm on fucking stratospheric chaos level 9 all the time. All the fucking time. I'm always thirsting for fucking information. But what I did, like I said, procrastinating about this and going around the circles, that's where I got to. I'd got to the point where I'd overwhelmed myself, and for the last 5 weeks, I've been rebuilding myself. For the first time, I'd felt burnout in such a long fucking time. It was scary, actually, because I was exhausted. And the trigger for my burnout was I went down, and this is where I knew, because you hurt the people you love when you're not in a good place, which is why relationships and friendships often fail. If you've got someone in your group that's not been dealing with their mental health, they'll often fail mainly because they'll take their frustrations and anger out on you, which is what I always did. Now, I knew I was in a bad place when I went down, and I did my usual on a Wednesday. I played darts and pool with my best mate and my dad every Wednesday. We go down. We've been doing it for about a year and a half now, and it's a breakup for the midweek, and it gets us to have a bit of banter. We get to act like children, no drinking involved. Just my dad has a couple of pints, but we normally just play pool, a couple of cokes, and a bit of darts. We have loads of banter. It brings us acts like fucking children. There's no cares. There's no children around us. No fucking adults around. There's no mums and dads, fucking wives, or anything around us. It's just us being dicks for a couple of hours, ripping the shit out of each other. Actually, we just rip the shit out of each other and make fucking life really hard to win. It's a fucking good time. But I was down there, and this was just before, about a week and a half before Benidorm, and I was on the peak of my burnout. I knew I was there. I was fucking running on fumes. And anyway, my dad was like, "Oh, mug's away, you can break." And I was like, "Oh, okay then." So I fucking braked, and because I thought I'd go first, so I did a break. And anyway, what we're supposed to do is take alternate breaks. We decided this about 6 months ago because I was getting arguments between. Well, my dad was winning. He was always making the other person break. Now, you try to get the person to break, because if they don't do a good break, you can potentially get a couple of balls off of them and start winning. And also, if they do a good break, if you can kind of get to the point where you can get them stuck. But we're not that good, so most breaks would be shit. So you always leave yourself a nice little cheeky opener, so you can't get 7 balls. So we try to take it in turns, so the consistency stays on a level playing field. He didn't. This day, I don't know why, he must have sensed I was in a fucking bad mood, because he felt the need to wind me up. And again, my dad is, as far as I'm concerned, quite frankly, undiagnosed ADHD autistic. He's the fucker that's been passing it down the fucking family generations. That's the problem. And basically, he sent around and he was winding me up, and he went, well, and then he beat me, and then beat my mate, and then came to me again, and he went, mugs away. And I went, oh no, I broke last time. He went, no, you're the challenger. I said, no, don't start this, mate. I said, you fucking break. We take it in turns, because I know he's shit at breaking, and because he'd won the first 2 games, I was like, you break, so you give me the chance to get in amongst the balls, and then I'll fucking kick your ass. That's where my mind was going. I just wanted to win. I didn't give a fuck. I wanted to beat him, and he wanted to beat me. So he was like, actually, I know I'm shit at breaking, so you can fucking break, and then I'll strategically slow down and beat you, because he likes to take a slower pace, whereas I'm quite fucking quick. So anyway, we sat there, and I turned around, and I went from, this is where I went from 0 to hero. This is where I knew there was a problem. I said, look here, mate. And this is what I said, and I'm going to say it pretty much verbatim. I said, look here, mate. We decided this 6 months ago. Just don't sit here and tell me your fucking bullshit. Take the fucking break, and we take it in turns. I'm not sitting here and having you talk fucking bullshit. And he went, no, I'm telling you to break. I said, you're fucking winding me up, mate. I said, so if you don't fucking break, I said, I'm going to put this fucking cue fucking stick down, and I'm going to walk off, because otherwise I'm going to end up doing something I regret. That's what I said to him. Anyway, he went and took the fucking break, and I calmed down, and I said, I need to go and get something to eat. So I didn't. What I needed to do was take myself out of the situation. So I took myself out of the situation, because I could see I was going to get fucking angry. I was going to go 0 to hero, and I've been there before, and I don't want to fucking do it. Anyway, came back down, had something to eat, got through the night. My mate texted me, and he basically said, are you okay, mate? He said, you've not been like that for years. Are you okay? And I texted him back and said, no, I need this holiday so fucking badly. I can't face people at the moment. And that was my burnout phase. So that was to give you an idea of why I've been so quiet for like the past fucking 5 weeks, is because I've been to the point where I was like, I'm just surviving at the moment. I'm just trying to get through this fucking bullshit time. But to offer a little bit of an insight into that, where I went wrong, I didn't take the required breaks I needed. I didn't take time away from work. I just kept going and going and going. I didn't let go, and I didn't give myself what I needed mentally, which was a reprieve. I needed a respite. I didn't give myself that. So I think for me, it encompasses, and one of my little, I think I'll finish on a final thought as I gather my thoughts at the end here. A little sip of Huel. As I gather my thoughts on the podcast today, and lots more to come now. So I feel rejuvenated, and I want to keep this momentum going. I've got a little plug at the end, actually, but I want to talk more about that. So I'll give you a little snippet, and then I'll give you more next time. But to summarize, I think, to summarize today's podcast, like I said, it's really important to understand that we have different mindsets. We have different brains. You've got to work with those brains. You've got to learn to understand them brains. But what I think you've got to do, and more importantly, is understand yourself. I understand myself, because it's me that puts myself into those situations. It's me that has to get myself out of those situations. It's me that has to conduct myself in a certain manner. If you go through life just letting this do what it does, and it's the same as if you let your heart do what it does, it's inevitably going to get fucking broken. If you let your fucking brain control it without an element of heart and getting that balance right, and you're going to reap what you sow. I live by the statement, you fuck around, you find out. I think it's important to understand yourself. Like I said, I'm proud of being self-aware, knowing my understanding, and knowing that, yes, I have to go into work and put a mask on because I'm in a professional corporate environment. Do I want to? Absolutely not. I've been in this corporate environment now for 5 years, and it's quite frankly horrendous. It's not my mindset. I can do it, but it's fucking hard work for me, because I can't close loops. I can't move things forward. I get frustrated. It's a very, 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 it's a fucking minefield to navigate. But it's important to understand, look after yourself, take that time out you need. Take breaks, take adequate breaks. Don't take breaks and do what I do. Take a break like I did in August. My break was to come out, and then I did a load of DIY. So I didn't switch off. I just did a load more thinking and a load more work, and tired myself out more physically than I did emotionally. So I was already emotionally fucked. I went and physically fucked myself in a week. And then, I still had 7 weeks after that episode, or that week that I would usually have to recuperate to the Benidorm trip. And I was like, well, 7 weeks, that's fuck all. That's a long time when you're in a fucking bad place. I can tell you that 7 weeks can feel like 7 fucking years if you're in a bad mindset. And I very much was in a bad mindset. And I had to just coax my way through. Luckily, my support network is invaluable. The people that I have around me in work, and the people I have around me in family and friends, I'm able to be transparent with them and go, I'm fucking struggling. And often they'll pick me up, which is really good, which is why I've got a small little circle of trust. That's what I mean. It's a small circle, many layers, but I've got a small circle of the people I can interject with. And I think for me, I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of where I've got to in the last 5 years. It's certainly given me a lot more drive and focus. I don't react as emotionally as I used to. There's still an element that will fall through the gap, but I think I'm a human being. So at the end of the day, that's learning, that's life. But for me, I think it's about taking that time. Also being proud, if you have, or you're on that journey, be proud of yourself, and acknowledge the milestones that you achieve. By recognizing those milestones, you give yourself a reward. If you're deficient in dopamine and you suffer from ADHD, you'll give yourself that dopamine respect. You'll hit those dopamine receptors by giving yourself the acknowledgement of the hard work you've done. I think it's really important to reward that. It's like I want to go to work. People say to me, why do you need to be rewarded at work? Because I want to know I'm doing a good job. If I don't get dopamine like you do. I'm neurodivergent. I don't get that. That's a deficit. You need to acknowledge there's a deficit. By you saying to me I'm doing a good job might seem patronizing, may seem a childish tactic, something you would have to do at school. But you have to do it. In my mindset, I need that. I need to know I'm on the right path. The autistic brain in me needs to know that I'm doing the right thing for the right people, for the organization, or for the people around me. Very, very much so. And I think it's important to understand the different layers of life. So just to summarize that is just, look after yourself, but be self-aware. And by looking after yourself, that's taking control of yourself as well. Don't sit there and expect everybody to work around you. It's really, I see so many people on social media that go, oh, I need to do this. You need to fucking do this. I'm this and I'm that. I'm not even going to trigger people by saying a fucking topic. But there's people going, I've got this and you must fucking adhere to it. No, I don't need to adhere to it. Fuck you. That's your life. Learn how to manage it. And then just keep it to yourself. Keep it to yourself. What happened to the secrets? So, we're almost at the point where people just want to share everything, he says. But I do. If there's a purpose for it, like I've shared a very internal secret, but the reason I've shared that is for awareness. That people do go through things in life that we don't anticipate. We don't know. Everybody thinks, like I said to you, and I say this all the time, from the outside in, this looks like a fucking great life. This thing I've got here looks amazing. If you asked me, have I got a good life? No. Because I want to do so much more, because I'm never satisfied. The reason I'm never satisfied, and this is as I mature and get older, and I naturally slow down with age, I'm starting to realize, well, you're not, then don't push yourself to try and get it. Maybe this is happiness. Maybe this is what happiness should be. I don't know. And again, that's learning and understanding about my mind and what makes me tick. What can I do that makes me happy without inducing collateral damage or causing fucking harm on anyone else? So it's a constant minefield, learning all the time. And just before I finish, I've started, and the reason I'm going to plug this a little bit here is because I'm invested in this now. Actually, I tried about 5 years ago. It was about 6 years ago, actually. Just before I started my podcast, I did a GoFundMe. I wanted to do a kennel and cattery thing. I wanted to start a kennel and cattery business. It was a dream job for me to own a kennels, look after people's dogs, train them. I did about fucking 30 different courses on dog training, Reiki healing for dogs, CBD for dogs, massages for dogs. I did everything. I learned a shitload. I spent almost £1,000 on qualifications for myself. Because I wanted to get into that field. That was where I was going 6 years ago. I was like, what do I want to do? I love fucking working with dogs. I love working to an element with people, because people with dogs are like-minded people. So, and I wanted to run a successful business. I started a GoFundMe, had about £400 in there over the course of a year with not really much plug-in. I'd also then started my career in my current role or my current organization. And it all fell to rat shit. I ended up resulting in getting severe anxiety about it, people questioning why was I begging for money and all this sort of stuff. And I kind of wasn't really mature enough really to understand, what I was doing it for. I knew what I wanted, but I felt I was begging. So I sort of kind of gave into how I was being depicted. And it probably wasn't the case. In most cases, it wasn't. So I ended up resulting in giving all that money back to the people that had donated, and the ones that said no, keep it, I donated to the Dogs Trust. So I showed them. I said, I've donated your £10 into the Dogs Trust. So the Dogs Trust got a big hit of money, a couple of £100, went back to people, and I was gutted. Actually, I was genuinely gutted. I've been through this corporate environment for the last 5 years, and I can do it. I'm financially stable to live this life, in the sense, and I'm very lucky for that. In terms of like, I can pay my bills, and I can look after my family. That's what I class as financially stable. I don't have disposable income to go away on holidays and all that sort of stuff. But I got the camper van to alleviate that, so I had something I could go camping with. So that was my holiday breaks, and I enjoy fishing as well. So little bits and bobs. So that could be perceived as being very happy. So I can afford to live at this level, but I'm not happy in myself. So I'm going to be doing continuing this on a more regular basis. And also what I've started as a GoFundMe page under James Littlejohn. In fact, I've got it. Just to give you a little plug. I'm going to plug myself here because that's what I do. It's called I'm Dreaming of Building a Dream Business. A lot of dreaming. And the reason, and what I'm going to do is anything that I get through any donations, I also do artwork as well. I'm going to start plugging into this. The reason being is I actually want this. I actually do. I can never afford to go out and get a mortgage. I'm not going to be privileged enough to have any inheritance that's going to come down my way, that's going to life change me that. So for me, I'm like in the background. If I can give and it can raise awareness and put donations in that will ultimately buy this business, which means I don't have any overheads. Which means I can then look at lowering costs, lowering bills, because I won't be here paying a mortgage. I'm kind of, I'm very well educated in terms of safety and sustainability and all that sort of stuff. So I aim to, push it into a more of a business in terms of online social media presence around it, and I want to grow everything together. So it's sort of kind of like I suppose it's my chance. It's a dream. I know it's a dream that I could never have without support, but I'll link it on this, and something I'll talk about at the end of every podcast, just because I'd like to get a little bit of awareness out there about it, and maybe some support. Like I said, it's a considerable sum of money to run a business like this. We are talking $500,000 to get a business and buy it outright. It's about $500,000. So I'm looking to myself and go, well, there's at least I've got a goal. At least I've got something to aim for, something to start. So I look at it as, you look at it, that's £500,000. Well, in actual fact, you could look at it, and the way I looked at it last time was that's 500,000 people give a pound. That when you put it into that perspective, the further wide you reach, the easier that becomes. So I'm very much of the ilk of I'm going to start it again. I've started it last night. I've written a summary. I'm going to do a cheeky video on this just to try and push it a little bit. But ultimately, yeah, I'm super excited about it. It's something that's going to just work away in the background. It's not going to cost me anything. It's just going to cost me time and doing what I enjoy. So please look out for the James Littlejohn GoFundMe page, and hopefully share and everything else. So and maybe make a dream come true. And hopefully, inherently, I'd like to make that dream come true for the people around me in my little supports, my little trust circle. So ideally, there's my brain is thinking 10 years. My brain is thinking, what can I achieve in 10 years? I can achieve quite a lot. And I'm thinking to myself, I think it's achievable because I enjoy this element as well. I enjoy talking to you. So hopefully you're getting loads out of this. I look forward to talking to you all again soon. And on the next episode of the Man Cave Chronicles, here we are in the Man Cave, and have an amazing time. Remember to keep positivity and promote positivity as much as you can in your life. Spread the positivity and look after yourself as much as you can. Take care, everyone.